As my viewers know, we like to joke around on this review show, but I like to take a serious moment. Every 2009, a Constructicon is seen lesser by his peers and gets torn apart limb from limb just to get something out of it. It's a cruel world, but for $20, you can save a scrap metal from the shelf and maybe reassure its safety from being torn apart. Look at this. All he needs is hope, and you can give it to him. Do it, moron! When Revenge of the Fallen released its main line of figures, it was met with hesitation over only some Constructicons getting a proper toy, and the large Devastator comprised of vehicles without the robot modes. Granted, an argument could be made that he was his own entity, and the simplicity made it easy to work with, but people still wanted to see 3-mode Constructicons. About 10 years after the release, plans were announced to make up for that long-lost hope in Studio Series, bringing more characters that will form the monster, starting with SCRAPMETAL, a character who got torn to parts to revive Megatron, their leader. SCRAPMETAL transforms into an excavator with a bucket-style arm. I bring this up because it's not accurate to what's seen in the film's alternate mode, which was a Volvo with a Muto-style jaw-claw. Unless you count the random yellow bulldozer seen briefly in the film for no reason because consistency? It gets more confusing as I assume they chose this to represent the vehicle that would become Devastator's hand, and the shovel's better depict the fingers. But even then, if you look back at the clip, you can spot the Volvo on the side, but also a front loader like Scrapper forming the hand. Someone tell me what's going on! I guess choices had to be made. I can't really call this inaccurate because, well, there is no accuracy to begin with, so this blend of an excavator with a bucket seems fitting for the figure, replacing what is essentially Bone Crusher's role. Even though he was seen in the film too. Trans theories help! I'm trying to give context, but he's having an identity crisis with Tonka vehicles, so can we just forget that and talk about the toy? Detail is pretty good if you can block out the nonsense on the front, but look at the treads with the gunmetal meat inside, and the arm itself with mechanics painted over in black. It really helps it stand out visually, but there are some flat surfaces that blend well. Windows are painted in a nice shiny blue, and I love the bars wrapping in the corners. Also, you see the panel in the back? I have a feeling that'll come up again. I don't know why, just I have the feeling. Rolls pretty well for tiny wheels inside the treads, and the arm moves with multiple joints, extends pretty far with a bucket that can pick up everyone's stupid crap. It's simple when it comes down to it, but that's a good thing considering it's part of a combination. Simple seems to secure its strength a little better, and personally he just reminds me of the old Tonka construction vehicles I messed with. It's fun to have a workable basic vehicle built for a job. Interesting that this was the first offering to a combination, but for a start I think it works. Not to mention, it shows Hasbro's willing to release lesser-known figures. Robot mode. Might not be favorable to those who don't have an interest in the Bay film style. Probably not the most wild, but you can waft in those tingly Bay smells with the chicken legs, buggy head, and wonky torso. But guess what? That's interesting. I just love this goblin. He's not excessively weird for the movie format, but I can't get over the shovel hands, and check out the inner torso detail. Also see the wavy panels and railings attached like backpack straps. I mean, he's clearly a movie former, but can I just like things for once? Is that hard? Face looks like some sort of swamp monster with Simpsons hair and tiny red eyes, but I dig it for trying something different. Screw the norm, you're beautiful, and the other guys are just jealous. Did someone say articulation? Ball jointed head, ball joint shoulders, hinge joint, ball joint elbows, shovel moves, shovel thumb moves, ball joint hips, rotation below, double knee, heels, and toes move. Posability is fine, and thanks to him not having actual hands, the gorilla arms doesn't really affect him poorly. Either way, I'm not gonna argue with clamp. You can even take the back, pull out the shovel, and have some dignity, why don't you? Does this count as an official upgrade kit for Megatron? Wait, 2 of them?! Let's take a look at the accessories. This is parts forming. Cog's whole gimmick is that he gets torn apart to make a bunch of weapons. Omega Supreme disconnects to form a bunch of things, that's the point. This I feel cheated. It's supposed to be a shield, but what's the point? Were they so bored with the wonky legs, clamp hands, Lisa Simpson hair, fish face that they had to put a balcony on his arms? His shovels have thumbs, is that not enough? For Devastator, scrap metal becomes one of the hands. And for a toy, it's a massive one, almost the size of mine. Fingers are posable, but with the middle finger being limited. Still good for a high five when needed. As the first step to the giant robot, I think it was smart to do scrap metal, showing how far they'll go to create it. Far enough to bring lesser known characters in studio series while giving hope for the Scrapper and even Hightower that would eventually become true. Besides that, he's an adorable little bugger for a freaky Constructicon, and no worries, that's a compliment. So if you dig the look, I think he's simple enough to warrant a purchase. There really isn't much I have an issue with. If you like it, I'd say you should try and get it. Just keep him safe and get a bit of super glue. Do you think we could get Neil deGrasse Tyson and get him to explain how this thing came to be? What's that? Just because you make videos in the subject matter of toys and characters doesn't mean that your content is made for kids? Wow! Interesting enough, the actual Hightower character never actually came into action for the film, unless you count Devastator's limb, if that even counts as his own character. However, he did see many concepts in toy forms, most of which help with the big combination. Filling in the spot, Studio Series brings Hightower into the line, the second and last deluxe in the combination line, but is he good by himself? Hightower transforms into a mobile construction crane with a massive claw on the arm. Makes me remember the claw machines I'd always lose at, and now I want vengeance. Give me my plush bunny! It's not perfect with some kibble at the bottom and back end that looks like a power source, but it's much cleaner than the scrap metal figure. That may be due to the simplicity of it, but that doesn't mean it's not gonna get nuts. Mostly clean panels, decent color, and greebling, all in a construction movie transformer. Someone's gonna make Rampage a little jealous. It's just so clean and elegant for a figure like this, no strings attached. No really, where's the cables? Wonderfully painted windows with black around to highlight, silver in the tread inner workings, and a head looking down saying, "You're not here right now, I can't see you." New challenge, show this to a boomer and convince him it's just a model. Wheels roll as well as you think, and the crane arm you have to assemble moves forward and back with the claw that also moves. Plus, the claw can be removed mostly for parts forming, but with an intended reason, and not just the stupid cafeteria tray. I guess my only major complaint is that the claw can't grab onto anything. Oh, and the thing pops off? That's not up to quality. It's simply just a crane and does a really impressive job. Pretty enjoyable, and I welcome more construction vehicles in the toys. Robot mode! Hightower digivolves into the thing that hides in your closet, which is a deformed Constructicon that somehow survived their equivalent of Chernobyl. Who thought of this? Is this too much for Pixar? Is this Mike and Sully's lawyer? When I saw this angry, out-of-the-norm monster crawling its way into the spotlight, I've never been more excited to see a beast since Shrek 2 went into Blockbuster. It's like the Constructicons tore this guy too, felt bad, and put him together with their imagination plus extras. I don't know any child drawing a T-Rex like this. I'm surprised it's not held up by scotch tape. Scrap metal was weird, but not overboard. This one takes the board and chucks it into orbit of Jupiter's moon. I think his head was originally tucked into the cage in the art. Either way, I love how he is. It's just kind of like a stupid pet. I like bringing up his head so we can admire his claw part. I don't know if I should censor this, not because it's got anything vulgar or anything like that, but I just don't know what I'm looking at. Head's got that typical insectoid Decepticon style with metallic dark gray, yellow that doesn't match the torso, and lovely red eyes. I would say it's weird, but it's actually the most normal thing on this creature. Did someone say, articulation? Head rotates in a curious way, up and down, neck up and down again at the base, arm moves at the base with 2 joints, hinge at the claw, arms move, shoulder, hips, forward and back, up and down, rotation below, knee joint, side tilt, another side tilt, and foot moves. There's a lot of posability in the legs thanks to the fact he's a whole lot of leg, but all Hollywood's adaptation of Dino Trucks. With it, you could recreate this to match closer to the Legends and concept model with the head in the cage and flat treads. Though, if I kept it, he'd be the little one instead, and imagine Megatron with these proportions. Let's take a look at the accessories. Hightower comes with the claw as mentioned, but the crane itself needs to be attached out of the box. Pretty stiff, but with the tabs it stays straight, and that is a weapon port so you can attach it with other figures. For the combination, Hightower becomes another section of the arm, and with scrap metal it's the first thing you assemble. Dang, it takes 2 deluxe figures to make an arm? Just hard to think how big this is, not just in size, but how much effort goes to this toy. Better to get in from alt mode. This part of Devastator tilts the treads, shows the port, and brings out the very messed up thumb. I think parts forming is effective, unlike something else, but the faces, yeah, that's disturbing. This is one abnormal creature that Repugnus would question, and for those who have a distaste for anything that relates with the movies, this would just be another questionable choice. Granted, likely look past because it's not in the film, but that doesn't mean his not average design isn't pleasing in the sense it is something different, and if you're okay with the look, or even like his style, this is fine as a figure. Fun, posable, and interesting to look at. I wonder if he could be the mascot for the Dinotopia franchise. Did you hear of the Pogo Man? Sounds like Marvel ran out of ideas. Another Constructicon setting up for the Combiner. Rampage is unique for his boing boing ability and tread whips used to face off Bumblebee. He seemed to easily jump around, which is good for a boxing match, but wasn't entirely agile. Studio Series brings him back, this time in the proper screen colors and taller compared to his deluxe version. Also no spider legs, whatever that was. Rampage transforms into a massive bulldozer, and by massive, I mean in comparison to the original deluxe version. I guess that's what you get for consuming veggies. The scale gets smaller, but the Rampage gets bigger. I like the red with a slightly orange tint, like finding the most red crayon that doesn't look too purple. Loads of black including the grill, and droopy heavy-duty treads. Also the wide plow that I keep thinking is gonna open up to start the conversion. Check out the blue solid windows in the canopy with, robot kibble? Yeah, there's a lot of it, but considering the 3 modes and gappy form, it's fine. I'm sure the real vehicle isn't a smooth Blade Runner Tesla truck anyways. This doesn't mean there isn't any intentional detail work on top inside the treads, and the pipings keep the top ones in mind. But what's in the plow? A vacuum? No, just a port for display reasons, but bring it down to lock the 3rd wheel. Look over here to find the base held in by tabs sandwiched in the treads, and yes, those are claws on the back, which I'm sure you could fold in, but this is apparently the correct way. Can I just imagine they're just there to catch rocks or whatever? I want to be in denial. I love how the treads have this droop motion to give it a sense of realistic flow, and you can see this long bar that doesn't seem to line up, but credit for the attempt. Wheels roll fine and the heft is impressive, which is probably why it was my favorite Tonka growing up. I feel like I could use it as a brick, build a house with these, and see a big bad wolf have a tantrum. This isn't perfect in design and functionality. The plow doesn't move, but it's still a powerful beast that'll help move those annoying trolls out of the way. The vehicle is built for a mission, and is enjoyable. Robot mode. Rampage in robot mode looks so real to the version in the film. The red seems like the right shade and the details are wonderful. Look at how much depth is in the torso with the hydraulics and textures. Sometimes it's overboard, but that's Da Vinci. But wait, it's a Bayformers figure, so it's problematic, Bay haters might say. Why would you like this? The name is from a Predacon. The hands are huge, and the single jackhammer leg is dumb poopy. How could anyone enjoy this? Well, to quote Phoenix, you wouldn't get it. This might be a lame joke, but I have to say it. Ain't no shovelback girl, ain't no shovelback girl. Where you going with the single leg and big hands with the big fingers? It ain't no shovelback girl, ain't no shovelback girl. Look, it's big, but it's out of the way, and from the front view, he is so wide that it covers it up. That's a meaty man. Too bad about the canopy on the leg. Speaking of that, unless it's a jackhammer, not sure how useful it will be in actual construction work. But hey, they don't even have helmets, so corporate's gonna go nuts. Oh, look at those caution logos just made for the robot mode. Should have warned people before they watched the film. Glad it's got a base that's not obnoxiously large, like, oh, I don't know, 3 extra limbs defeating the point. It pops off from a normal peg, so you can just have the figure by itself. Perfect idea. Also, if you want a combiner's foot. If I have to complain, it's that he's so wide that in some poses tilting to the side with the weight will probably not work. Look at the head on the caterpillar neck with the grumpy chin and raccoon-style makeup that makes it look like the Incredibles in disguise. I feel like the black color needs to break up, and I wish the eyes were more pronounced, maybe with the deep red, but it still works. Did someone say articulation? Ball joint head, side to side, up and down, butterfly joint, shoulder up and down, forward to back. Fingers move with 2 joints, ratchet ab joint, rotation below, and another joint in the leg. Posability is fine if you can make it work with the shifted weight on a single... Hoping that's not what I think it is. Moving the center really starts giving him some energy and motion, but no elbow joint sort of ruins it. Also wish the whips could extend out. Let's take a look at the accessories. Rampage includes the stand, but that's not all. I love when weapons are integrated to the toy, and these stacks can be removed and added to the thumb as guns. Funny how this little thing just makes him so much more fun. There's so much going on, yet blasters in the thumb is apparently needed. It's a hassle getting into leg mode with half the arm rotating around and barely shifting to slide into a tab, but man, this feels proper for Devastator. Look at those awesome toes and ankle with great movement. I'm concerned how strong this is, as I feel things warp and the entire figure would rely on the strength of the legs, but I can't not get excited. There's ways to keep the base in, but unless you want to keep the parts together, you don't need it. I love the vehicle mode. It just feels powerful and fitting for the figure. With the robot, I'm not going to argue with anyone who doesn't like the style of the Bay films, but there's some personality on this. It's crazy, but provokes that model seen in the film pretty well, unlike some of the other figures of this design. Not perfect, but Rampage does a pretty good job with keeping my attention. Few joints should be tighter, but this is a good toy for something insane. I must advise that you don't give him caffeine. Holiday season, the time where people bring in the big green Christmas tree. And I was planning to do an actual holiday special, but I couldn't, so this being big and green is going to be the only connection. Listen, there's some people that can't see eye to eye with each other, like some people think that Generation 1 is outdated. There's people who hate the Bayformers look for messing with iconic designs like the original characters never mattered. And then there's Long Haul, the bridge between! Decepticon Long Haul, like his Generation 1 counterpart, is usually the one to carry the heavy loads, despite his preferred mission to destroy any Autobot he could find. Funny, as this Constructicon seems to be the closest to resembling a more traditional Constructicon adapted into the movie theme. Could be the green color that really hits it, but he's got elements of his construction vehicle placed proudly on him, and doesn't seem to have some sort of crazy alterations. Fun fact, this was the very first Revenge of the Fallen character model approved from designer John Neasy, not only from the fans, but by the filmmakers of the sequel film, including Aaron Archer and Michael Bay. Long Haul transforms into a massive dump truck, and this is where it gets confusing. Not what is scrap metal confusing, but the actual limb in the film was different to the shape used for the original toys and concept art. Apparently this is much closer to the limb form we see close up, but I don't even think it's accurate to that. I believe there's supposed to be a slope on the canopy, but it's so close that I can't get mad. It's close enough, and you can still call it a dump truck with the massive wheels and bed carrying a load of dismembered limbs. It's no competition to the original. I mean, this was just a thick box with an actual moving bed, but considering how much this toy needs to carry, haha! I can't say I'm disappointed, as I never expected the moving bed to begin with. Oh, but third party could have with dirt. There's more grills or vent details than the barbecue competition. Look at it all. Man, look at the silver inner details and headlights. It's good, but used pretty sparingly. Most of it's just green with black headlights. But if I wanted to see a construction vehicle go for style points, I'd see Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance. And who wants to see Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance? Big wheels roll fine, and I want to look past the Revenge figure's style as they're both doing different vehicles, but I can't help it. There's just not enough bulk, and not enough long haul here. He just doesn't feel as beefy by comparison, but don't worry, it will kind of work out. Actually, they're not that different. This one's just longer and slimmer, while this one's just a box. I guess my complaint overall is everything seems to be set completely off. Look at the sides, it just seems warped with the front pushed up. From the top view, you can see that the arms don't fit well, and so the back tabs doesn't stay. I usually just leave them off, it's not worth the trouble, but this needed to go back to the drawing board. So this doesn't have the amazement of the original toy, but functions as a dump truck figure alright. Mind the robot kibble surrounding this, I'm not really mad at it, just lacks in areas. Robot mode. Robot mode definitely has that ogre look to it, with the incredible chunk that looks like Luigi ate Mario. You can tell this is just the muscle of the group, and honestly, he is my favorite of those movie Constructicons. So why do I find this disappointing? To figure this out, we should compare it to the original mold. Looking at this, seems like the original was stretched out. He's much taller, and his parts seem to expand out, which doesn't feel as accurate, and where did this bar come from? But this has working hydraulics, gears, and axes. It just seems more fun compared to this supposed upgrade. At the same time, comparing him to the other Constructicons, and they're just so strange and abnormal. Longhaul was the only Constructicon that still felt like a Constructicon. I do like the large tires and bucket panel, but they're more trouble than it's worth as they clash into themselves. Dear Joby. I can safely say the advantage of this toy is the shape. Remember looking at the original telling yourself this just isn't right. This figure seems to show how to do things with style, big feet, amazing detail including these tiny bars, silver paint highlights, and back rake. Early Danny DeVito, or It's Always Sunny Danny DeVito. Head sculpt is wonderful, it's large with very sharp details, red eyes, and isn't afraid to show off those teeth with the mouth of a deformed Halo grunt. Did someone say, articulation? Ball jointed head, shoulders up and down, forward to back rotation below, elbow bend, waist rotation, hips out and in, forward to back rotation below, knee bend, another rotation, foot tilt, and toes move. Articulation is fine when it counts to having the right joints, including some not casual to the movie line of figures. But everything gets in the way. It's like constantly turning a corner in a maze only to find a wall. Bucket parts hit the wheels, head's hard to rotate with the collar, and these upper legs uncomfortably stick out, ruining the flow, constantly hitting the torso. No accessories for this lug, meaning he doesn't have some sort of garbage parts forming, unlike some others. But eagle-eyed nerds like me might have noticed the rockets molded to the bucket panels, and with that, there's a weapon porthole in his strong hands. Yeah, there's back kibble, but at least it flops out of the way. However, it just flops. From the side, the leg mode looks fine with the sloping toes with the bucket panels, and I dig the tires used as the heels. Head's right there, but honestly my real concern is the giant block on the foot. Just doesn't look right. Loose ratchet on the side tilt, so there's a lot of wiggle, but I think structurally it's fine. It's basic, but I feel because of that, they could have fixed some of the issues. Oh well, still impressed. It may seem like I'm being overly nitpicky towards this, but when I got it, something about it just didn't surpass my expectations. It didn't feel like it exceeded over the other figure, and maybe I shouldn't compare him to the old figure. I can't stop thinking about it. I guess they wanted to play it safe, but when it comes to it, this should do a few things. Work as a limb with the other Constructicons, fit in with them, and actually have the right proportions over the older figure that looked like an awkward costume. He's not the best, but I still adore him, and he wasn't really jumping around in the film, so when I get him in a pose, it works. It's the Green Machine Donkey! Happy holidays, you handsome! Do you like simple men with a big broad build? Well, do I have the guy for you? Call today at the fake number. While he's not the sharpest bot on Velocitron, Crumple Zone, not to be confused with the Minicon, is still a speedy guy with a strong design. Usually he relies on Ransack to be the brains, making the duo of Matt and Ryan from Super Mega. Usually these guys cause no more than a little ruckus, creating problems for other people. Sounds like a team of prank channels. Their plans don't usually go well as they're constantly at the hand of their comeuppance. Still, they're better to work with Megatron to slow down opponents. Crumple Zone becomes this massive racer with 3 large wheels and massive ridiculous boosters for radical speed. It's strange, but even with the bulk of the arms and legs shown visible, excused by an imperfect alien form, it all comes together to make an aggressive vehicle that's actually very consistent in its own way. Yet somehow everything shouldn't work with this slimmed down front section and round cockpit, and massive back section that makes it look like someone merged a bike with a car. But I think because it's all crazy and tough, as well as fitting for the personality of the character, it all fits well. It's like an art project that starts messy, but when it all comes together, you start to realize that art should be open, because you could get something like this. And just add big-ass rockets for the hell of it. I feel like this is so close to being some version of a Batmobile if they made it in... Oh, you had the same idea. Taking the Cyber Key, you can attach it in to launch the rockets forward as massive cannons while swinging these large wings for the spoiler. If that's not enough, there's also a sound effect. Let's listen. Be careful, with the rocket swinging forward, it could wear out the mechanism inside. Also, these fins are pretty floppy, but you can push the tabs to launch the missiles. Taking a step back, really seeing this? No man should have this kind of power. Rolls amazingly, and I don't want to call this a car. I can't tell if it's that, a bike, a tank, or just everything. Giraffe with wheels, maybe? Crumple Zone works in just being something crazy, but clearly something you don't want to mess with. There's so much that brings the strength and mechanical hardware of the design and gives it his own theme. Robot mode. Zone really brings in that strong appearance while never overshadowing some of the major players. He's more of a tough henchman that got people's attention, just the boiler had away from being Bob in Overwatch. I love the cartoonish proportions with the tiny legs and chunky upper body. It's like a little guy wearing some huge jacket. He can come at you with a punch, but if he has to walk to you, it'll be a while. I love the slick feet with a wide base, wide torso, and bubble cockpit chest like he's pretending to be a seeker with tires, but I think the lower arms are just too long. Not that I don't get it, he's supposed to be big, strong Popeye, but with the upper arms being so short, bending the arms for a different look doesn't make much of a difference. Somebody infused technology with spinach, and sometimes science is a gem. Head mold's impressive, like a metal version of Bulkhead. Too bad about the panel it's on that doesn't tap in, but the jaw can move easily. Did someone say articulation? Head rotate, shoulders up and down, another slight up and down, forward and back rotation below, elbow joint, another rotation, waist rotation, hips out and in, forward to back rotation below, knee joint, and foot moves. Posability is actually incredible for a figure of its time. Extra joints in the arms so he can crush from any direction, and even a waist joint, uncommon to the figures of the series unless it's necessary for the conversion. Although, watch out for the spoilers, one hit and they'll just flap everywhere. They just slide back, but just try to keep it in place. Crumple Zone includes a Speed Planet key that plugs up his butthole to swing the rockets again directly in front with the same sound effects. Still able to launch the missiles, and it's surprising to see his tiny legs still carry the weight. According to all known laws of physics, there is no way that a Crumple Zone should be able to stand. His legs are too small for his fat, massive body to be lifted from the ground. The Crumple Zone, of course, stands anyways, because Crumple Zones don't care what humans think is impossible. Look at how big they are! Soundwave, I feel sorry for you. Maybe he needs a jetpack to stay straight. Could you imagine him hovering? Does Crumple Zone is Buzz Lightyear? There needs to be more Crumple Zone. People still adore this character, but I feel he slipped into obscurity. This dull henchman has more value than you might think. He's just a fun, interesting design that's enjoyable. Wonderfully made, a great solid figure. There's a reason people still take joy looking back at this. Crumple Zone would be good to get with his buddy, but on his own, he's still fine. Not much to complain, just a very impressive toy. I guess he could also be a good Bond villain.